Admiral HFY stood in the command center of the Coalition's last remaining station. Through the large windows, he could see the burning remains of 3 transport ships floating in space. The ships had been carrying families, children, and old people trying to escape to safety. Now they were just twisted metal and fire. The Hegemony had found them again. "Sir, we have lost contact with Evacuation Convoy 7, reported Lieutenant Kelra, her voice shaking. The enemy destroyed all 12 ships, no survivors. HFY closed his 4 eyes and tried to control his anger. The Hegemony had been hunting his people for 2 years now. They called it bringing order to the galaxy, but everyone knew what it really meant. It meant slavery or death for anyone who would not bow down to their empire. The Zephyrian Coalition had tried to fight back at first. Their 3 star systems had good technology and brave soldiers, but the Hegemony was too big, too strong. They had conquered dozens of worlds before reaching Zephyrian space. Each conquered world gave them more ships, more soldiers, more resources to use against the next target. "How many evacuation ships do we have left?" HFY asked. 43 ships, sir. But they can only carry about 2 million people. We still have over 50 million civilians on the 3 home worlds. HFY's heart sank. Even if all the remaining ships escaped, most of his people would die. The Hegemony did not take prisoners from species that fought back. They would kill everyone and take the empty planets for themselves. "Sir, long-range sensors show Hegemony forces moving toward the Krathmer system," another officer reported. "They will reach our main evacuation point in 18 hours. 18 hours. After that, the last hope for his people would be gone." HFY walked to the main display screen. It showed a map of the local galaxy. Red markers showed Hegemony forces. They were everywhere, like a disease spreading across the stars. Blue markers showed the few remaining Coalition ships. And there were so few blue markers left. "Sir, we are receiving a message from the Hegemony fleet," the communications officer said. "Put it on screen." The face that appeared was ugly and cruel. Commander Theckener of the Hegemony smiled with too many teeth. His yellow eyes gleamed with pleasure. "Admiral HFY, your resistance ends today. Surrender now and your people will serve the Hegemony as workers. Continue to fight and we will kill every last one of you. My people will never serve your empire." HFY replied. "We would rather die free than live as slaves." Theckener's smile grew wider. "That can be arranged. You have 1 hour to change your mind. After that, we begin hunting down your evacuation ships." The screen went black. The command center was quiet for a long moment. Everyone knew what this meant. In 1 hour, the slaughter would begin again. "Sir," Lieutenant Kelra said quietly, "what are your orders?" HFY stared at the galaxy map. There had to be something, some way to save at least some of his people. His eyes moved across the display, looking at the empty systems beyond Hegemony space. Most were too far away or too dangerous to reach. Then he saw it. A small yellow star at the edge of the map. The computer labeled it as Sol System, Primitive Species, No FTL Capability. "Kelra, bring up the file on this Sol System." The information appeared on screen. One inhabited planet called Earth. The species called themselves humans. They had only reached their own moon so far and had never traveled between stars. Their technology was hundreds of years behind the Coalition, but they were there. They existed. And maybe, just maybe, they would help. "Sir, you cannot be thinking of contacting them," said Commander Jaxel, his science officer. "They are barely out of their Stone Age. What could they possibly do?" "They might have cargo ships," HFY said. "Old mining vessels, anything that could carry people. Even a few hundred more refugees saved would be worth it. But, sir, the quantum transmitter array is our most powerful piece of equipment. If we use it to send a message that far, the Hegemony will detect the signal. They will find this station and destroy it." HFY nodded. Using the transmitter would mean certain death for everyone on the station. But if there was even a small chance of saving some of his people, he had to try. "How long to prepare the transmitter for maximum range broadcast?" 30 minutes, sir. Do it. Send a message to this Sol System. Tell them who we are and what is happening. Ask for any help they can give. Sir, what should we tell them about payment? They might want resources or technology in exchange. Vexai looked around the command center. Every person there knew they were about to die, but they were still working, still trying to save others. Tell them we have nothing left to offer except our gratitude. If they want to help, it must be, because it is the right thing to do. The next 30 minutes passed quickly. The transmitter was charged to full power. The message was written and translated into the basic mathematical language that most species could understand. "Transmitter ready, sir," reported the communications officer. "Send the message." The quantum transmitter activated with a low hum that grew louder and louder. All the lights on the station dimmed as power flowed into the device. Through the windows, Vexai could see the transmitter array glowing brighter than a small sun. "Message sent, sir." Signal strength was at maximum. "If there is anyone listening in the Sol system, they will hear it." "And so will the Hegemony?" Jaxel added grimly. As if his words had summoned them, alarms began sounding throughout the station. "Sir, Hegemony ships are coming out of FTL, 12 heavy cruisers and a battleship. They will be in weapons range in 10 minutes. Vexai nodded. He had expected this. "All stations, prepare for evacuation. Get to the escape pods." "Sir, what about you?" Kelra asked. "I will stay and make sure the station's computers are destroyed. The Hegemony cannot be allowed to learn about the message we sent." One by one, his officers saluted and headed for the escape pods. Soon, only Vexai remained in the command center. Through the windows, he could see the Hegemony ships approaching like hunting animals closing in on their prey. He walked to the main computer and began the destruction sequence. All files about the Sol system and the message would be erased. The humans would be safe from Hegemony attention. At least for now. The first enemy missiles struck the station's outer hull. The floor shook and lights flickered. More impacts followed, each one stronger than the last. Vexai looked one last time at the galaxy map. Somewhere out there, in a small system around a yellow star, lived a species that might help his people. Or they might ignore the message completely. But at least he had tried. The final missile hit the power core. The station exploded in a flash of white light, taking Admiral Vexai with it, but his message was already traveling through space at the speed of light, racing toward a small blue planet where a species called humanity was about to receive the most important communication in their history. Dr. Sarah Chin was working late again in the Deep Space Monitoring Facility in Chile. As Earth's leading expert in xenolinguistics, she spent most of her time looking for patterns in radio signals from space that might indicate intelligent life. So far, she had found nothing but natural phenomena and random noise. Tonight felt different somehow. Her computers had detected an unusually strong signal coming from the direction of the constellation Draco. The signal was too organized to be natural, but unlike anything in their databases. "Computer, run pattern analysis on signal designation XB4471. The computer worked for several minutes before responding. "Pattern suggests mathematical progression. Possible artificial origin." Sarah's heart began beating faster. Could this finally be it? First contact with an alien species? "Computer, alert Admiral Hayes at Space Command. Tell him we may have something important." Within minutes, her phone was ringing. "Dr. Chun, this is Admiral Jackson Hayes. What do you have for me?" "Admiral, I think we have received our first message from an extraterrestrial intelligence. The signal is definitely artificial and appears to contain complex information. Can you decode it?" "I am working on it now. The mathematical structure suggests they are using basic universal constants to establish communication. Give me a few hours and I should be able to translate at least part of it." "Good work, Doctor. Keep me informed." Sarah hung up and turned back to her computers. The signal was incredibly complex, but patterns were emerging. Mathematical sequences that defined basic physics concepts, chemical symbols for common elements. And then, slowly, something that looked like language. As the hours passed, the message began to make sense. What Sarah read made her hands shake with fear and excitement. It was a desperate call for help from a dying civilization. A species called the Zephyrian Coalition was being destroyed by something called the Hegemony. They were asking for any assistance that could be provided, ships to carry refugees, supplies for survivors, anything that might help save some of their people. The message included star charts, population numbers, and the locations of their last remaining settlements. It painted a picture of systematic genocide on a scale that humanity had never imagined. Sarah picked up her phone with trembling fingers. Admiral Hayes, you need to see this message immediately. And sir, you are going to want to call an emergency meeting of the Global Defense Council. That's serious? Sir, we have just learned that we are not alone in the universe. And we have also learned that there are things out there that make our worst nightmares look like children's stories. Across the galaxy, the last Zephyrian evacuation ships fled through space, carrying the survivors of a once great civilization. Behind them, hegemony ships hunted them like wolves pursuing wounded deer. None of them knew that their admiral's final, desperate gamble was about to wake something that would change the galaxy forever. They had sent their cry for help to what they thought was a primitive, harmless species. They were wrong about the primitive part. But they were very, very wrong about the harmless part. Captain Elena Vasquez stood on the bridge of the UES Indomitable, watching the stars stretch into lines as her ship dropped out of faster-than-light travel. Around her, the bridge crew worked with quiet efficiency, their faces focused and serious. Captain, we have arrived at the coordinates provided in the alien distress signal, reported Navigation Officer Chun. We are at the edge of what they called Zephyrian space, Elena nodded. It had been 3 weeks since Earth received the desperate message from the dying alien civilization. 3 weeks of frantic preparation as humanity's military leaders planned their first contact with extraterrestrial life. The Global Defense Council had debated for hours about how to respond. Some wanted to ignore the message, afraid that getting involved would bring the enemy to Earth. Others argued that humanity had a moral duty to help. Admiral Hayes had ended the debate with simple words. We don't ignore distress calls. We never have, and we never will. Now, Elena was here with the most advanced ship in humanity's fleet, leading a mission that would either save an alien race or start humanity's first interstellar war. Sensors, what do you see? Elena asked. Lieutenant Commander Torres studied his displays with growing alarm. Captain, I am reading massive energy signatures throughout this system. Multiple large ships, weapons fire, and what looks like debris from destroyed vessels. Can you identify the ships? Some match the design patterns from the Zephyrian message, but there are others much larger. They appear to be attacking the smaller vessels. Elena felt her jaw tighten. They had arrived in the middle of the massacre they had come to stop. Put it on the main screen. The bridge's large display screen lit up with a view of the battle. Elena had seen combat before, but nothing like this. Massive alien warships, each one larger than a city, were systematically destroying smaller vessels that were clearly trying to escape. The smaller ships had no weapons and were packed with refugees. As Elena watched, one of the large warships fired a beam weapon that cut through an escape ship like it was made of paper. The ship broke apart, spilling tiny figures into space. People, families, children. Captain, we are receiving a transmission from one of the large ships, the communications officer reported. They are demanding we identify ourselves and leave immediately or be destroyed. Are those the hegemony forces mentioned in the distress signal? Yes, ma'am. Ship configurations match the data provided by the Zephyrians. Elena looked around her bridge. Her crew was waiting for orders. Each face showed the same mixture of anger and determination that she felt. Weapons, charge all railguns and prepare nuclear torpedoes. Target the largest enemy vessel. Ma'am, we do not know their capabilities, Torres warned. Those ships are much larger than ours. Size isn't everything, Commander. Communications, open a channel to the enemy ships. Channel open, Captain. Elena stood and faced the main screen. This is Captain Elena Vasquez of the United Earthship Indomitable. You are attacking unarmed civilian vessels. Cease your assault immediately and withdraw. The response came quickly. A hideous alien face appeared on screen. The creature had gray skin, yellow eyes, and far too many sharp teeth. It looked at Elena with obvious contempt. I am Commander Theckener of the Hegemony, Second Fleet. You will identify your species and explain why you dare interfere with Hegemony operations. I just did. You are murdering innocent people. Stop now. Theckener laughed, a sound like breaking glass. Innocent? These vermin dared to resist the Hegemony. They chose their fate when they refused to surrender. As for you, primitive creature, you will withdraw immediately or share their destruction. Elena smiled, but it was not a friendly expression. You know what, Commander? I don't think so. Weapons, fire all guns. The Indomitable's railguns spoke with thunder. Magnetic coils accelerated tungsten rounds to 20% of light speed. The projectiles struck the Hegemony ship's shields in rapid succession, each impact releasing energy equivalent to a nuclear explosion. Theckener's expression changed from contempt to shock, as his ship's shields flared and collapsed under the assault. Impossible. Our shields can stop any weapon. Not ours, Elena replied. Weapons launch torpedoes. 6 nuclear torpedoes streaked across space toward the Hegemony flagship. The alien ship tried to shoot them down, but human weapons were designed by a species that had perfected the art of killing other humans. The torpedoes zigzagged and split apart, overwhelming the ship's defenses. The nuclear explosions tore through the flagship's hull like it was made of cardboard. The massive vessel, symbol of Hegemony power, broke apart and died in fire and radiation. On his bridge, Elena could hear alarms blaring and crew members shouting in panic. The other Hegemony ships were turning to face this new threat, but their movements seemed clumsy and slow. Commander Torres, analysis of enemy vessels. Captain. Their ships are heavily armored but not very maneuverable. Their weapons appear to be energy-based with limited range. Their shield technology is sophisticated but seems designed to stop energy weapons, not kinetic projectiles. Elena nodded. The aliens had built their ships to fight other aliens who use similar technology. They had never faced weapons designed by a species that had spent centuries perfecting the art of warfare. All ships, this is Indomitable. Execute attack pattern Delta. Target their weapons and engines first. The rest of the human fleet dropped out of FTL space around the battle. 24 ships, each one carrying enough firepower to level a city. They moved with precise coordination, like a school of sharks surrounding their prey. The Hegemony forces tried to respond, but they were not prepared for human tactics. While they focused on one ship, others attacked from different angles. Their energy weapons had trouble tracking the smaller, faster human vessels. Within minutes, 3 more Hegemony ships were destroyed. The rest began to retreat, firing wildly as they ran. Should we pursue them, Captain? Torres asked. No, let them go. We came here to save refugees, not to start a war. Elena paused. Yet, with the immediate threat gone, Elena turned her attention to the surviving alien ships. Most were damaged and drifting. Some were sending distress signals of their own. Communications, can you establish contact with the refugee ships? Working on it, Captain. Their technology is different, but I think I can adapt our translators. After several minutes, a new voice came through the speakers. It was higher pitched than the Hegemony commander's voice and sounded exhausted. Unknown vessels, this is Transport Captain Rixan of the Zephyrian Coalition. We received your transmission and are grateful for your assistance. Are you the species that answered our distress call? This is Captain Vasquez of the human species. Yes, we received your message and came to help. There was a long pause before Rixan replied. When he did, his voice was filled with wonder and confusion. Human species? You said you were primitive, with no faster-than-light travel. Yet you destroyed 3 Hegemony cruisers as if they were toys. How is this possible? Elena looked around her bridge. Her crew had handled the battle with the same calm professionalism they brought to every mission. To them, this had been just another day at the office. Captain Rixan, we may be new to space travel, but we are very old at warfare. Can your ships make it to safety? Some can, but many are badly damaged. We have over 40,000 refugees aboard the ships in this convoy, and our life support systems are failing. Understood. We will escort you to the nearest safe harbor. Medical teams prepare to receive alien casualties. As the human fleet formed a protective formation around the refugee ships, Elena walked to the tactical display. The battle had lasted less than an hour, but it would change everything on the refugee ships. Zephyrian survivors pressed against their windows to look at the strange vessels that had saved them. The human ships were smaller than Hegemony vessels, but they moved with deadly grace. More importantly, they had destroyed the unstoppable Hegemony fleet. Transport Captain Rixan stared at his sensor readings in disbelief. The human ships were giving off energy signatures unlike anything in the galactic databases. Their weapons used principles that Zephyrian science barely understood. Communications Officer Veltar, compile everything we know about these humans. Send it to the Coalition command ship immediately. Sir, what should I tell them about human capabilities? Rixan looked at the tactical display showing the burning remains of 3 Hegemony cruisers. Tell them that our distress call was answered by a species we know nothing about. Tell them these humans destroyed a Hegemony fleet without losing a single ship. And tell them that they did it not for a reward or a conquest, but because we asked for help. He paused, still trying to process what he had witnessed. And Veltar, tell them the galaxy just changed forever. Aboard the Indomitable, Elena was receiving reports from her other ships. The human fleet had suffered no casualties and minimal damage. The Hegemony forces had been completely outmatched. Captain, we are receiving long-range communications from deeper in Zephyrian space, the communications officer reported. Multiple alien vessels are requesting permission to approach. Friendly? They identify themselves as coalition forces. They want to thank us for saving the refugees. Elena nodded. Grant permission, but keep weapons ready. We still don't know who else might be out here. As the first Zephyrian warships approached, Elena couldn't help but notice how different they looked from the Hegemony vessels. Where the Hegemony ships were angular and aggressive, these were curved and elegant. They moved like dancers rather than predators. Captain, the lead coalition ship is requesting permission to come alongside. Their commander wants to meet with you personally? In person? Yes, ma'am. They are asking if you would be willing to come aboard their ship for a formal first contact ceremony. Elena considered this. Every protocol said she should be cautious about boarding an alien vessel. But these people had asked for help, and humanity had answered. Trust had to start somewhere. Tell them I accept. Commander Torres, you have the bridge. If anything happens to me, complete the mission. Get those refugees to safety. Aye, Captain. Good luck. An hour later, Elena found herself in the docking bay of a Zephyrian cruiser, wearing her full-dress uniform and breathing alien air for the first time in human history. The gravity was lighter than Earth's, and the air smelled faintly of something like cinnamon. A group of alien figures approached her. They were tall and slender, with 4 arms and large eyes that seemed to show every emotion. Their leader stepped forward and spoke in accented but clear English. Captain Vasquez, I am Admiral Krathmer of the Zephyrian Coalition Defense Force on behalf of my people. I thank you for answering our call for help. Elena extended her hand in the traditional human greeting. After a moment's hesitation, the Admiral took it with one of his 4 hands. Admiral, we came as soon as we could. Are there other refugee convoys that need assistance? Many. The Hegemony has been hunting us for 2 years. We have lost billions of people. The Admiral's large eyes showed pain that needed no translation. But Captain, I must ask, your species said you had no faster-than-light travel, yet you arrived here in a matter of weeks. And your weapons ... double quotes. Elena nodded. We developed FTL drive after receiving your message. As for our weapons, they come from centuries of fighting wars against ourselves. We're very good at it. The Admiral stared at her in amazement. You developed interstellar travel in 3 weeks? When humanity decides to do something, Admiral, we don't waste time. And you came all this way to help people you had never met? With no promise of reward? Elena smiled. Admiral, has anyone ever told you humans have a saying? No one left behind. That includes people we just met. Admiral Krathmer was quiet for a long moment. Around them, his crew members were whispering among themselves in their own language. Captain Vasquez, you should know that the Hegemony has conquered over 40 star systems. They have fleets of thousands of ships. What you destroyed today was just a small raiding force. How big is their main fleet? Our intelligence suggests they have over 3,000 capital ships and 10,000 smaller vessels. They rule through fear and superior technology. Number one has ever successfully resisted them for long. Elena considered this information. 3,000 capital ships was a lot, but not impossible to handle. Admiral, how many more refugee convoys are out there? 17 that we know of. Maybe more. But Captain, you cannot fight the entire Hegemony with just your small fleet. Elena smiled again, and this time there was something in her expression that made the Admiral step back. Admiral, this isn't our small fleet. This is our scouting force. The real fleet is still being assembled. How many ships do humans have? Well, that depends on how you count them. Combat vessels, about 8,000. But if we include everything that can carry weapons ... double quotes, Elena paused to do the math. Probably. Closer to 50,000. The bridge of the Zephyrian ship went completely silent. 50,000? The Admiral whispered. Admiral, humanity has been preparing for interstellar war for decades. We just never had anyone to fight. Now we do, Elena's expression grew. Serious, you ask for help, you're going to get it. All of it. As Elena returned to her ship, Admiral Krathmer stood at his command center, trying to process what he had learned. His species had sent a distress call to what they thought was a primitive civilization. Instead, they had awakened a military force that made the Hegemony look small. Sir, should we warn the Hegemony about human capabilities? One of his officers asked. Admiral Krathmer looked at the tactical display showing the remains of the 3 Hegemony cruisers. No, he said quietly. Let them find out for themselves. Commander Maria Torres stepped through the airlock of the captured Hegemony supply depot, her assault rifle ready. Behind her, 12 human Marines followed in perfect formation. Their armor was black and covered with sensors and cameras that recorded everything they saw. The Hegemony facility was massive, built inside a hollow asteroid. Corridors stretched for kilometers in all directions, filled with supplies meant to feed the war machine that had been destroying peaceful civilizations for decades. Thermal imaging shows approximately 200 life forms in this section, reported Sergeant Johnson through the CUM system. They appear to be hiding, Torres nodded. This was the 15th Hegemony facility they had captured in the past month. Each time, the pattern was the same. The aliens would fight briefly, then surrender as soon as they realized what they were facing. Remember the rules, Torres told her team. Prisoners are to be treated according to the Geneva Convention even if they are aliens. No unnecessary violence, no revenge killings. We are professionals. The team moved through the corridors with practiced efficiency. Human military tactics had been refined through centuries of warfare. They knew how to clear buildings, how to anticipate enemy movements, and how to minimize casualties on both sides. The first group of Hegemony soldiers they encountered was hiding behind an improvised barricade. There were 8 of them, armed with energy weapons and wearing heavy armor. They looked confident until they saw the humans approaching. Unknown species, identify yourselves. One of them shouted. You are trespassing on Hegemony territory. Torres raised her hand to signal her team to stop. She stepped forward, keeping her weapon lowered but ready. I am Commander Torres of the Human Marine Corps. This facility is now under human control. Surrender your weapons and you will not be harmed. The lead Hegemony soldier laughed. Primitive creatures think they can threaten us? We have conquered 40 star systems. We are the masters of this galaxy, Torres sighed. They always said something like that. Sergeant Johnson, demonstration, please. Johnson raised his rifle and fired a single shot at the wall behind the Hegemony. Soldiers. The high-velocity round punched through 3 layers of reinforced alien metal like it was paper, leaving a hole large enough to put a fist through. The Hegemony soldiers stared at the hole in shock. Their own weapons barely scratched. That kind of armor. Your energy weapons are designed to overwhelm shields and then burn through armor slowly, Torres explained calmly. Our weapons are designed to punch through anything immediately. Your choice, surrender or find out what our bullets do to flesh. The Hegemony soldiers looked at each other, then slowly placed their weapons on the ground. Wise choice. Corporal Martinez, secure the prisoners. Full medical check and clean quarters. These soldiers are now under human protection. As the prisoners were led away, one of them turned back to Torres. Why do you treat us well? We would have killed you without mercy. Torres considered the question. Because we're not you, we're better. While Torres secured the supply depot, Admiral Hayes was meeting with Zephyrian leaders aboard the Coalition flagship. The alien ship's conference room was beautiful, with flowing curves and soft lighting. It was designed by a people who believed that even military vessels should be pleasant places to live. Admiral Krathmer and his staff looked exhausted. They had been fighting a losing war for 2 years, watching their civilization slowly die. The arrival of human forces had given them hope, but also confusion. Admiral Hayes, we are grateful for your assistance, Krathmer said. But we must discuss the conduct of your forces. We have received reports that concern us. Hayes raised an eyebrow. What kind of reports? Your soldiers treat Hegemony prisoners very well. You give them medical care, good food, and comfortable quarters. This is unusual. How is it unusual? Another Zephyrian officer, Commander Velka, leaned forward. Admiral, the Hegemony has killed billions of our people. They have destroyed entire worlds. Yet your forces treat captured Hegemony soldiers better than the Hegemony treats its own wounded. Hayes nodded slowly. And this bothers you? It confuses us, Krathmer admitted. We have also heard reports of human soldiers risking their lives to save Hegemony civilians during the attacks on their colonies. Why would you do this? Because that's what civilized people do, Hayes replied simply. We fight the military, not the civilians. We treat prisoners with dignity because that's what separates us from the enemy. Commander Velka pulled up a holographic display. Admiral, let me show you what the Hegemony did to our colony on Rikstar 7. The display showed images that made Hayes' stomach turn. Burned cities, mass graves, evidence of systematic torture, and execution of prisoners. They did this to our people, Velka said, her voice shaking with anger. Yet you want us to treat their soldiers with kindness? Hayes was quiet for a moment, studying the horrific images. When he spoke, his voice was calm but hard. Commander, I've seen worse than this. Humans have done worse than this to other humans. We learned something important from those dark times. Becoming monsters to fight monsters just creates more monsters. But surely revenge is justified after such crimes? Revenge, yes. But not against soldiers who surrender. Not against civilians who had no choice. We will find the ones responsible for these crimes and bring them to justice. But we will do it the right way. Krathmer looked puzzled. The right way? War crimes tribunals, fair trials, justice, not revenge. Hayes leaned forward. Admiral, do you know why your distress call reached us instead of being ignored like most requests for help in this galaxy? No, Admiral. Why? Because humans have a rule. We help people who ask for help. We don't ignore distress calls. We don't abandon allies. And we don't become the thing we're fighting against, no matter how much easier it would be. The Zephyrian officers exchanged glances. Finally, Krathmer spoke again. Admiral Hayes, there is something else we must discuss. Our intelligence report suggests that news of human intervention is spreading throughout the galaxy. Other species that have been conquered by the Hegemony are beginning to rebel. Is that a problem? It could be. If the rebellions fail, the Hegemony will make examples of the rebels. Billions more could die. Hayes stood and walked to the large window overlooking space. In the distance, he could see human ships escorting another convoy of Zephyrian refugees to safety. Then we better make sure the rebellions don't fail. On the planet Korthnin, in what had once been the Hegemony's most secure prison facility, something unprecedented was happening. The prisoners had taken control of the complex and were holding their former guards hostage. The rebellion had started when news arrived that an unknown species had destroyed multiple Hegemony fleets. The prisoners, representatives of a dozen different conquered species, had decided that if someone was finally fighting back, they would too. Now they waited to see what would happen. Would the Hegemony send forces to crush them? Would this mysterious new species come to help? They got their answer when human ships appeared in orbit. "Attention prison facility Korthn," came a voice from space. "This is Colonel Williams of the Human Liberation Force. We are here to assist your rebellion." The rebel leader, a being called Mortax from a species called the Velkari, could hardly believe what he was hearing. "Human forces, this is Mortax. We have taken control of the facility, but we cannot hold it long. The Hegemony will send reinforcements." "Understood, Mortax. We have medical ships standing by to evacuate wounded prisoners. How many guards are you holding?" 47 Hegemony personnel. They are unharmed but confined." There was a pause before the human responded. "Mortax, what are your intentions?" "Regarding the guards?" Mortax looked around at his fellow rebels. Many had suffered torture and abuse at the hands of these same guards. The desire for revenge burned in every face. "They are war criminals, Colonel. They have tortured and murdered thousands of prisoners over the years." "Understood. We will send down teams to document their crimes and take them into custody for trial. Please ensure they remain unharmed until then." "Trial? You wish to put them on trial?" "Yes, war crimes tribunals with proper evidence and fair proceedings. Some may be executed if found guilty, but only after due process." Mortax was confused. "Colonel, these beings showed no mercy to their prisoners. Why should we show mercy to them?" "Because showing mercy to the guilty is what separates civilization from barbarism, Mortax. Because if we become like them, they have already won." The human transport ships landed an hour later. Mortax watched in amazement as human soldiers provided medical care to both the liberated prisoners and the captured guards. The humans treated everyone with professional courtesy, even those who had committed terrible crimes. Dr. Elizabeth Park, the chief medical officer, was working on a badly injured Velkari prisoner when Mortax approached her. "Doctor, why do you help us? We are not your people." Dr. Park looked up from her patient. "Because you needed help. That's what we do." "But we cannot repay you. We have nothing to offer." "We're not asking for payment. We're asking you to be better than your enemies were. Help us build something good from all this destruction." As the evacuation continued, Mortax found himself talking with Colonel Williams about the human approach to warfare. "Colonel, your soldiers fight with great skill but also great restraint. How do you train warriors to be so disciplined?" Williams considered the question. "We teach them that the real victory isn't killing the enemy, it's making the enemy realize they were wrong. You can't do that if you become the thing they said you were." "What did the Hegemony say you were?" "Primitive savages who would destroy everything they touched." William smiled grimly. "We're going to prove them wrong by being better than they ever imagined." Meanwhile, on the Hegemony capital world of Krathmer, Supreme Commander Krathik was reviewing intelligence reports that made no sense. "These humans," he said to his intelligence chief, "explain to me how a primitive species developed faster than light travel and military technology superior to ours in a matter of weeks." Intelligence Chief Varak looked uncomfortable. "Supreme Commander, our analysis suggests they already have the technology. The message we intercepted suggests they have been preparing for interstellar warfare for decades." "Preparing to fight whom?" "Each other, apparently. Their planet appears to have multiple competing nations that have been in almost constant warfare for centuries." Krathik leaned back in his throne. The Hegemony had conquered other worlds through overwhelming technological superiority, against species that barely understood warfare. But this was different. "How many human ships do our scouts report?" Current count is over 5,000 confirmed vessels, with more arriving every day. Their fleet appears to be roughly equivalent to our own in terms of numbers, but not in capability. Vorak hesitated. Supreme Commander, in every engagement so far, human forces have achieved victory with minimal casualties. Their weapons and tactics are unusual. Unusual how? They appear to have designed their entire military doctrine around fighting an enemy with equivalent technology. Their weapons are optimized for maximum damage rather than efficiency. Their tactics prioritize rapid, overwhelming force rather than gradual conquest. Krathik was beginning to understand. The Hegemony had built its military to conquer primitives and maintain order among conquered populations. They had never faced an enemy that was actually trying to kill them as efficiently as possible. What do our captured soldiers report about? Human treatment of prisoners? They report excellent treatment, Supreme Commander. Medical care, adequate food, and no torture or abuse. And this troubles them? Yes, Supreme Commander. They expected to be tortured or killed. Instead, they are being treated according to some human code of conduct regarding prisoners of war. Krathik stood and walked to the large window overlooking his capital city. For 300 years, the Hegemony had ruled through fear and cruelty. They had convinced the galaxy that resistance was futile because the consequences would be too terrible to bear. Now they faced an enemy that was proving them wrong. An enemy that was stronger than they were, but also more moral. An enemy that fought with deadly efficiency, but also showed mercy to the defeated. Vorak, what is the status of our slave populations on conquered worlds? Several revolts have begun, Supreme Commander. The rebels seem to believe that human forces will come to assist them, will they? Intelligence suggests yes, Supreme Commander. Human forces appear to be responding to any request for assistance against Hegemony rule. Krathik realized with growing dread that his empire was facing something it had never encountered before, an enemy that was both stronger and better than they were. The Hegemony's entire system was built on the idea that might made right, that the strong deserved to rule the weak. But what happened when someone stronger came along who didn't believe that? Vorak, prepare the Grand Fleet for mobilization. We will crush these humans before they can spread their ideas further. Yes, Supreme Commander. What are your orders regarding captured human personnel? Krathik smiled coldly. Standard interrogation? Procedures. These humans may treat our people well, but they will learn that we are not so civilized. It was a decision that Krathik would soon come to regret more than any other choice he had ever made. General Carlos Martinez stood in the command center of the human battle station, looking at a holographic display that showed 17 different star systems. Each system contained a Hegemony stronghold. Each system would be attacked simultaneously, in the largest military operation in human history. Operation Thunderstrike will begin in 30 minutes, he announced to his staff. All fleet commanders report ready status. Around the galaxy, human forces had been gathering for weeks. Ships from Earth, Mars, the asteroid belt, and every human colony converged on staging areas near Hegemony space. The aliens had never seen anything like the logistical operation required to coordinate such a massive assault. Admiral Krathmer watched from the observation deck as human ships continued to arrive. I count over 3,000 vessels, he said to his aide. How many more are coming? Intelligence suggests this is approximately 60% of human military capability, replied Commander Velka. They are holding forces in reserve. In reserve for what? Unknown, sir. But General Martinez told me that humans always plan for the unexpected. Krathmer shook his head in amazement. His people had sent a simple distress call asking for cargo ships to carry refugees. Instead, they had awakened a military machine that dwarfed anything the galaxy had ever seen on the bridge of the UES Retaliation. Captain Chung was briefing her crew on their target, a Hegemony naval base in the Korthan system. Intelligence. Reports indicate approximately 40 capital ships and supporting vessels. The base is built into 3 large asteroids and serves as a regional command center. Her tactical officer, Lieutenant Torres, raised his hand. Captain, what are our rules of engagement? Standard Liberation Protocol. Destroy military targets, capture or disable enemy vessels when possible, protect civilian populations. Any hegemony. Personnel who surrender are to be treated as prisoners of war. And if they don't surrender? Chun's expression hardened. Then we remind them why it was a mistake to torture human prisoners. The hegemony had made a fatal error 2 weeks earlier. They had captured a human reconnaissance team and attempted to interrogate them using their standard torture methods. The humans had died rather than reveal information, but not before managing to transmit a distress signal. The rescue mission had found the bodies. What the hegemony had done to those humans had been broadcast to every ship in the human fleet. Now, while human forces would still accept surrender and treat prisoners well, they were no longer quite so concerned about minimizing enemy casualties. All ships, this is General Martinez. Operation Thunderstrike is now active. Execute your assignments. Across 17 star systems, human fleets dropped out of FTL space simultaneously. The hegemony had expected attacks, but not on this scale and not with this level of coordination. In the Korthan system, Captain Chen's task force materialized directly between the naval base and the main planet. The hegemony defenders scrambled to respond, but they were already too late. All ships focus fire on the military installations. Avoid the civilian areas on the planet's surface. The human assault was unlike anything in galactic military history. Instead of the usual prolonged siege warfare that most species used, the humans struck with overwhelming force, designed to end the battle as quickly as possible. Railgun rounds traveling at relativistic speeds punched through hegemony shields and armor like they weren't there. Nuclear torpedoes detonated in precise formations, creating fields of destruction that no ship could survive. Most devastating of all were the new plasma cannons that turned enemy vessels into clouds of ionized gas. Enemy flagship is requesting terms for surrender, reported the communications officer. Tell them to power down all weapons and prepare to be boarded. Medical teams will treat their wounded. Within 4 hours, the Korthan naval base was completely destroyed and its surviving ships captured. The pattern was repeated across all 17 target systems, but Captain Chun's attack had an unexpected witness. Hidden in the outer system was a small ship belonging to the Talvari Federation, one of the few remaining neutral powers in the galaxy. Captain Morthic of the Talvari observer ship watched the battle with growing amazement and terror. His species had remained neutral in galactic conflicts for centuries by being too weak to threaten anyone and too useful as mediators to destroy. Communications Officer Valan, record everything. The Federation Council must see this. Captain, should we contact the human forces? Morthic considered this. The humans had just demonstrated military capabilities that exceeded even the hegemony. They could probably destroy his small ship without noticing. Negative. We observe only, but prepare a message for immediate transmission to the Federation. Tell them that the galactic balance of power has just shifted dramatically. As the human fleet prepared to leave the Korthan system, they received an unexpected transmission. Human vessels, this is Captain Morthic of the Talvari Federation. I request permission to approach under diplomatic immunity. Captain Chain looked at her tactical display. The alien ship was small and showed no weapons. Permission granted, Captain Morthic. What can we do for you? Captain Chun, I am an official observer for the Talvari Federation. My government wishes to establish communication with your species. For what purpose? To discuss the new reality that your actions have created. The hegemony has ruled this region of space for 3 centuries. Now you have proven they can be defeated. This will have consequences across the entire galaxy. Shun nodded. Captain, you're welcome to accompany us back to Coalition space. Admiral Hayes can discuss diplomatic matters with your government. As the combined human and Talvari ships traveled through FTL space, Captain Morthic learned more about the species that had just changed galactic history. Captain Chun, may I ask about your species' military capabilities? The weapons you used? Today we're unlike anything in our databases. We design our weapons to fight other humans, Captain. Humans are very good at warfare, so our weapons have to be very effective. But your treatment of prisoners and civilians suggests your species values mercy and justice. How do you reconcile this apparent contradiction? Chun thought about the question. Captain, humans learned long ago that being able to fight and being willing to fight are two different things. We're very good at violence because we've had to be, but we're also very good at knowing when to stop. I do not understand. The goal isn't to destroy your enemy, Captain. The goal is to make your enemy realize that fighting you was a mistake. You can't do that if you're just as bad as they are. Meanwhile, on dozens of hegemony-controlled worlds, something unprecedented was happening. The news of simultaneous defeats across 17 systems had spread faster than the hegemony could. Control on the industrial world of Vexstar, a population of slave workers from 12 different conquered species had risen in revolt. They had seized control of the factories and were broadcasting a message to anyone who would listen. This is Rebellion Leader Caxvel of the Vexstar Liberation Front. We call upon the human forces to assist us in overthrowing our hegemony oppressors. The response came within hours. Human ships appeared in orbit and began landing liberation forces. But they also brought something unexpected: mobile war crimes tribunals. Colonel Johnson led the team that secured the hegemony administrative center. What they found there made even hardened human soldiers sick with rage. Colonel, you need to see this, reported Sergeant Martinez. It's the punishment center. Johnson followed his sergeant into a building that reeked of death and suffering. The walls were lined with cells designed to inflict maximum psychological trauma. The floor was stained with blood that would never wash clean. How many prisoners? Johnson asked. We count over 300 beings from various species. Most are barely alive. The medical team says many won't survive even with treatment. Johnson walked through the facility, documenting everything. The evidence would be needed for the war crimes trials that would follow. Sergeant, where are the hegemony guards? Barricaded. In the central complex, sir. They're requesting terms for surrender. Johnson's jaw tightened. Tell them to come out with their hands visible and no weapons. They will be taken into custody for trial. Sir, what if they refuse? Johnson looked at the torture chambers around him. Then we go in and get them. The hegemony guards did surrender, but only after human forces surrounded their position. As they were led away in restraints, one of them called out to Johnson. Human, you waste your time with trials and justice. We were following orders. We did what was necessary to maintain order. Johnson stopped and turned to face the alien. You know what the difference is between you and us? What? We know that following orders isn't an excuse for torture and murder. You're about to learn that lesson in a court of law. As the liberation of Vexstar continued, other hegemony worlds were sending their own calls for help. The human response was always the same: immediate military assistance followed by the establishment of legal proceedings to document crimes and provide justice. On the hegemony capital world, Supreme Commander Krathmer was meeting with his military council in emergency session. Report, he demanded. Fleet Admiral Thekvar looked exhausted. Supreme Commander, we have lost control of 23 star systems in the past week. Human forces have proven capable of coordinating attacks across vast distances with precision we cannot match. What about our counterattacks? All have failed, Supreme Commander. Human ships are faster, their weapons more powerful, and their tactics more effective than anything we have encountered. Then we will use their weakness against them. What weakness, Supreme Commander? Krathmer smiled coldly. Their obsession with protecting civilians and treating prisoners well. We will use their own morality to destroy them. Intelligence? Chief Varak leaned forward. What do you propose? We will begin executing civilian populations on worlds still under our control. For every human attack, we will kill 1 million innocent beings. Eventually, they will have to choose between continuing their campaign and watching us murder entire populations. The council chamber was silent for a moment. Finally, Varak spoke. Supreme Commander, such actions would be war crimes under any civilized code of conduct. We are beyond such considerations now. The very survival of the hegemony is at stake. Sir, what if the humans respond by accelerating their attacks? They might attempt to liberate all remaining worlds simultaneously. Krathmer laughed. Impossible. They do not have enough ships to attack everywhere at once. It was a miscalculation that would prove fatal to the hegemony and everything it stood for. 3 days later, Admiral Hayes received intelligence about the hegemony's new strategy. His response was immediate and decisive. All fleet commanders, this is Admiral Hayes. The enemy has chosen to target civilians in an attempt to use our humanity against us. This is unacceptable. He paused, his voice growing harder. Effective immediately, all human forces are authorized to use maximum force against hegemony military targets. The gloves are off. We will liberate every world under hegemony control within 30 days, and we will do it with such overwhelming force that resistance becomes impossible. Sir, asked Admiral Vasquez, what about our force reserves? There are no more reserves. Every ship, every soldier, every weapon we have will be deployed. The hegemony wants to see what happens when they threaten innocent civilians. Hayes's smile was cold and deadly. They're about to find out. Across human space, mobilization orders went out to forces that had been held in reserve. Mining ships were converted to troop transports. Civilian vessels were armed and pressed into service. The entire human military machine shifted into a gear that no galactic species had ever seen. The hegemony had made the fatal mistake of threatening innocent people to gain leverage against humanity. They were about to learn why that was the worst possible strategy to use against a species that had a saying, "Nobody messes with Earth." Admiral Jackson Hayes stood on the bridge of the UES Destiny, humanity's newest and most powerful warship. Around him, the largest fleet in galactic history prepared for the final assault on the hegemony. Capital system, 3,000 human warships filled space around the Krathmer system. Support vessels, troop transports, medical ships, and mobile command centers stretched beyond the horizon. It was a sight that no species in the galaxy had ever imagined possible. Admiral, all fleet commanders report ready, announced Captain Torres. Total force count, 3,047 combat vessels, 800 support ships, and 2 million troops. Hayes nodded. In the months since the hegemony had begun executing civilians, humanity had mobilized its entire military capability. Every ship that could carry weapons had been pressed into service. Every soldier had volunteered for the liberation. Campaign. Communications, open a channel to the hegemony capital. Channel open, sir. Hayes looked directly into the camera, knowing his words would be broadcast across the entire hegemony empire. This is Admiral Hayes of the United Earth Forces. Supreme Commander Krathmer, you have 1 hour to surrender unconditionally. All hegemony military forces will lay down their arms. All civilian executions will cease immediately. You will release all prisoners and turn yourselves over for war crimes prosecution. He paused, his expression cold and implacable. If you refuse, we will take your capital by force. Your choice. The response came within minutes. Supreme Commander Krathmer's image appeared on screen, his reptilian features twisted with rage and desperation. Admiral Hayes, you think your primitive species can threaten the hegemony? We have ruled this galaxy for 3 centuries. Our capital is defended by the Grand Fleet, over 2,000 ships and the most advanced defensive systems ever built. Hayes smiled, but there was no warmth in it. Commander, you made a fatal mistake when you started murdering innocent civilians. To use against us? Now you get to see what happens when humanity stops playing nice. Your threats do not frighten us, human. Come and try to take our world. We will show you the true power of the hegemony. The transmission ended. Hayes turned to his tactical staff. All right, people. The enemy has chosen the hard way. Admiral Chen, begin the outer system sweep. Admiral Martinez, deploy the assault fleets. Admiral Vasquez, take your ships and eliminate their orbital platforms. Sir, asked Captain Torres, what about minimizing? Casualties? Hayes looked out at the stars, thinking of the millions of innocent beings the Hegemony had murdered in the past month. Captain, our job is to minimize casualties among our people and innocent civilians. Enemy combatants who refuse to surrender have made their choice. The Battle of Krathmer began unlike any engagement in galactic history. Instead of the traditional approach of gradual escalation, human forces struck everywhere at once with overwhelming force. Admiral Hyun's deep strike force materialized at the edge of the system and immediately began destroying Hegemony, sensor arrays, and communication satellites. Within minutes, the defenders were blind and unable to coordinate their response. Admiral Martinez's assault fleets targeted the system's defensive platforms. The massive orbital fortresses had been built to withstand traditional energy weapons, but they had never faced human kinetic weaponry. Tungsten rods traveling at relativistic speeds punched through shields and armor like they were made of paper. Admiral Vasquez led her ship straight toward the main planet, her fleet moving in. Formation so tight and coordinated that it looked like a single massive organism. The Hegemony defenders tried to intercept them, but human ships danced through their formations, striking and retreating before the enemy could respond. Sir, enemy forces are attempting to form a defensive line around the planet, reported the tactical officer. Number of ships? Approximately 1,800 capital vessels, plus supporting craft. Hayes nodded. It was exactly what human intelligence had predicted. The Hegemony was making their final stand with everything they had left. All fleet commanders execute Battle Plan Omega. What happened next had never been seen before in galactic warfare. The entire human fleet moved as one, ships shifting positions with mechanical precision. They formed concentric spheres around the enemy formation, creating overlapping fields of fire that left no escape routes. Supreme Commander Krathmer watched from his command ship as the human fleet surrounded his forces. For the first time in his long career, he felt real fear. How many human ships are there? He demanded. Our count shows over 3,000, Supreme Commander, replied Fleet Admiral Thekvar. They outnumber us almost 2 to 1. But our ships are larger and more heavily armed. Supreme Commander, size appears to be irrelevant. Human weapons are penetrating our defenses with ease. As if to prove his point, a massive Hegemony dreadnought exploded in the distance, torn apart by human rail gunfire. All ships, concentrate. Fire on the enemy flagship. Krathmer ordered. The Hegemony fleet turned its weapons on the UES Destiny. Energy beams and missile barrages converged on the human ship from dozens of directions. The Destiny's shields flared and sparked under the assault, but held. Human defensive technology had been designed to survive nuclear warfare between their own species. Alien energy weapons, no matter how powerful, simply couldn't match the destructive force that humans routinely used against each other. Return. Fire, Hayes ordered calmly. The Destiny's main guns spoke with thunder. Nuclear torpedoes and plasma cannons reached out across space to touch the enemy ships. Where they hit, Hegemony vessels simply disappeared in balls of fire and radiation. Sir, the enemy is breaking formation, reported Admiral Chun over the communications system. They're trying to scatter. Negative. Maintain the sphere, no one gets out. The battle became a systematic destruction of everything the Hegemony had left. Human ships moved with deadly coordination, their captains thinking and acting as one mind. They had trained for this kind of battle for decades, practiced it in countless simulations and exercises. The Hegemony forces fought bravely, but they were outmatched in every way. Their weapons couldn't penetrate human defenses. Their ships couldn't match human speed and maneuverability. Their tactics, designed for conquering primitives, were useless against an enemy that had perfected the art of total warfare. Supreme Commander, we have lost 70% of our fleet, Fleet Admiral Thekvar reported. We must surrender before they destroy us all. Krathmer stared at the tactical display showing the systematic destruction of his empire's military might. In 3 hours, the Grand Fleet had been reduced to scattered wreckage. Never. The Hegemony does not surrender. Sir, if we continue fighting, everyone will die. At least if we surrender, some of us will survive. Krathik turned to his communications officer. Send a message to all remaining ships, fight to the last. Take as many humans with us as possible. But even as he gave the order, more hegemony. Ships were exploding around him. The humans were systematically eliminating his forces with clinical efficiency, then something unexpected happened. Admiral Hayes's voice came over the general communications frequency. All hegemony vessels, this is Admiral Hayes. Your Supreme Commander has ordered you to fight to the death. You do not have to obey that order. Any ship that surrenders now will be spared. Your crews will be treated as prisoners of war and given full medical attention. There was a pause, then one hegemony captain responded. Admiral Hayes, this is Captain Verthel of the cruiser Dominion. I surrender my ship and crew. Acknowledged, Captain. Power down your weapons and prepare to be boarded. Within minutes, other hegemony ships began surrendering. Their captains could see that continued resistance was hopeless. The human fleet was too powerful, too coordinated, too efficient. No, Krathik screamed. I forbid surrender. Fight them. But his own officers were looking at him with expressions of doubt and fear. They had served the hegemony loyally, but they were not suicidal. Fleet Admiral Thekvar stepped forward. Supreme Commander, I relieve you of command under emergency provisions. This fleet surrenders. Krathik reached for his weapon, but two guards restrained him. You cannot do this. I am the Supreme Commander. You were the Supreme Commander of an empire that no longer exists, Thekvar replied sadly. Now you're just a war criminal waiting for trial. The Battle of Krathmer ended with the surrender of the remaining hegemony forces. In 6 hours, humanity had destroyed the most powerful empire in the galaxy and captured its leadership, but Admiral Hayes was not finished. All ships prepare for planetary liberation operations. Marine forces will secure the capital and establish temporary government. Medical teams will treat all wounded, regardless of species. Legal teams will begin documenting war crimes for prosecution. As human forces landed on the hegemony capital world, something remarkable happened. The civilian population, expecting to be slaughtered in revenge, instead found themselves being protected and cared for. Human soldiers distributed food and medical supplies. Human doctors treated alien patients with the same care they would give to their own species. Human engineers began repairing infrastructure damaged in the battle. On the steps of the former Supreme Commander's palace, Admiral Hayes met with representatives of the conquered species that had been enslaved by the hegemony. Admiral Hayes, said Mortax, the former rebel leader from the prison planet, what will happen to us now? Will humans become the new rulers of the galaxy? Hayes shook his head. We didn't come here to conquer anyone. We came here to stop a genocide. Now that we've done that, each world will be free to choose its own government. But surely you will want something in return for your sacrifice? Payment for your help? The only payment we want is your promise to be better than the hegemony was. Build governments that protect all people, not just the strong. Create laws that apply equally to everyone. Treat prisoners and civilians with dignity even during conflicts. Another representative, a Zephyrian diplomat named Velka, stepped forward. Admiral, what about the hegemony personnel? What will happen to them? Those who committed war crimes will be tried in fair courts with proper evidence and legal representation. Those who were just following orders will be released. Those who helped us or surrendered will be given the chance to rebuild their lives, even after everything they did. Hayes looked out over the alien city where human soldiers were working alongside former enemies to restore power and water to civilian areas, especially after everything they did. Someone has to break the cycle of revenge and hatred. It might as well be us. 6 months later, Admiral Krathmer stood in the new Galactic Council chambers on the neutral world of Talvos. Representatives from over 50 species sat in session, debating the formation of a new interstellar government based on principles of democracy and individual rights. The humans had kept their word. After defeating the hegemony, they had withdrawn their forces and helped establish independent governments on every liberated world. They had shared their technology freely and asked for nothing in return except friendship and trade agreements. The Terran delegation requests permission to address the council, announced the session moderator. Admiral Hayes walked to the central podium. He looked older than he had during the war, but his eyes still held the same determination that had inspired his species to cross the galaxy to help strangers. Fellow delegates, 6 months ago, the galaxy was ruled by fear. One empire controlled dozens of worlds through terror and oppression. Today, we gather as free peoples to build something better. He paused, looking around the chamber at the faces of beings from across the galaxy. Humanity did not come here to become your leaders or your conquerors. We came because someone asked for help, and we don't ignore distress calls. Now that the immediate crisis is over, our role is to be partners and friends, not rulers. A delegate from the former Hegemony world stood up. Admiral Hayes, what guarantees do we have that humanity will not use its military superiority to impose its will on other species? Hayes smiled. The same guarantee we gave to your own people when we accepted their surrender instead of destroying them. Humanity's strength comes not from our weapons, but from our principles. We fight to protect, not to conquer. We show mercy to enemies because that's what civilized people do. But what if another threat arises? What if someone else tries to build an empire through conquest? Then the Galactic Council will decide how to respond, and humanity will abide by that decision. We are one voice among many now, not the dominant. Power. As the session continued, Admiral Krathmer reflected on the incredible changes of the past year. His people had sent a simple distress call asking for cargo ships to carry refugees. Instead, they had awakened a species that would reshape the galaxy's understanding of power and responsibility. The humans could have become the new rulers of the galaxy. Their military superiority was unquestioned. Instead, they had chosen to help other species build their own governments and find their own paths to peace. After the session, Krathmer approached Hayes privately. Admiral, may I ask you a personal question? Of course. When your species first received our distress call, did you ever imagine it would lead to this? Hayes looked out the window at the stars, where ships from dozens of worlds traveled freely between systems that had once been isolated by fear and oppression. Admiral Krathmer, when we heard your call for help, we knew only one thing for certain, that someone needed assistance and we were capable of providing it. Everything else was just details to be worked out along the way. And if another species sends a distress call tomorrow? Hayes smiled. Then we'll answer it. That's what we do. That's who we are. As the two admirals stood looking at the stars, neither could have imagined that in the outer reaches of the galaxy, new signals were already being detected. Other species, having heard of humanity's intervention against the hegemony, were beginning to send their own calls for help. The galaxy was learning that there was now a species that answered distress calls, protected the innocent, and showed mercy to enemies. A species that had somehow managed to combine the heart of a protector with the mind of a warrior. The galaxy was learning about humanity, and for the first time in centuries, that was a reason for hope rather than fear.